The Pistons are the basketball champions of the world.
It's time. It's playoff time, Detroit. Let's go to work. Shout out Detroit. I got to puff up, you know what I'm saying? Detroit, I'm all the way in. Detroit Pistons, I'm all the way in. Let's do it.
What's up, Pistons fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Buffs on podcast. We're well into the off season now. September's sneaking right around the corner. And in a month from now, folks, we're going to be seeing Pistons preseason basketball. It's been a long off season, still have a long ways to go. No Amit tonight. He's at a wedding. So another wedding for Amit. What a busy man. Just the trio of brothers today. I'm here, Coni's here, and Gabe is here. How are we doing, guys?
Doing good.
Yeah, holding myself over on some FIBA basketball. Have you guys been watching the tournament at all?
Just the highlights.
Yeah.
Team Canada, Team Germany.
Yeah, I've been tuning into a lot of Team Germany games. I think they got a chance to medal. I think like Canada, U.S., Germany seem like the three best teams right now.
How regularly are you watching these games right now?
I've watched 2 Germany games, all the U.S. games, except for the one that was at like 5 in the morning. I didn't check that one out, and I watched 1 Canada game.
All right, the Buffs on Pod has their own FIBA World Cup professional. So if you guys have any questions, send them into Coni. But talking Pistons, like we said, off season, long off season, time to overreact. We saw some Rico Hines footage the other day. Annual summer runs out in Los Angeles. The Pistons squad was there. Seems like they sent out 10 guys. It looked like the first team was the one we saw on YouTube that had a lineup of Cade, Ivy, Asar, Stu, and Duran. And then we could see that Marcus Sasser, the guy Killian Hayes was there, Monte Morris, Livers was seen, and according to Amit, Wiseman was there, which would make sense for that two teams of 5. But some good, some bad from this. We got to see Cade Cunningham, which obviously got me and along with a lot of other Pistons fans incredibly excited. But there were other things as well. What were your takeaways? Let's go to Coni first. Rico Hines runs. What do you like to see?
Keep it short and sweet. I just want to talk about Asar. I thought defensively he just looked really good. Like his ability to move laterally, not only move laterally quickly, but like mirror his man, like really stay with him, almost anticipate the move, stay right in front of guys like Norman Powell that are like really good scorers. And he got some steals too. His arms he's so like long, lanky, like, and just very quick with the footwork. I think the most impressive defensive thing I saw was I think it was Norman Powell did sort of like a step back 3-pointer, and Asar just checking him man to man, playing him for the drive. He sees the step back, goes up, clean block on a step back 3-pointer, not like sprinting out, not covering ground, just straight up from a defensive stance, blocks a step back, which is just nuts.
Who was that player that he blocked?
I think it was Norman Powell. That block specifically might not have been him, but he was checking him just about the entire time. And Norman Powell hit some difficult shots, man. Like
he's a
even
good
the
player.
shots that Norman Powell made as a professional bucket getter were in Asar's grill. I saw so excited off of his defensive ability. He seems like a guy who's going to be averaging like 2 to 3 steals per game on a regular basis. Just such active hands. Coni, you mentioned the long wingspan. He just seems to have a natural tendency to play defense as well. I really think, like we said, easily time to overreact right now, but I really think this guy is going to be known for his defense at such a high level that he's going to be on all defensive NBA teams in a matter of no time, honestly. If the situation and if everything lines up for him well, I feel like I could see him on a second team, all defensive team this year. He just looks so ready on that end, and I love his size. I think people are skeptical to kind of throw him out there more towards that 4, like leaning towards that 4-3-4 position. But I think, quite frankly, he'd be pretty good picking up 3s, 2s, and some 4s, obviously not the bigger ones. But just so versatile, so active. I was so happy to see him in these runs. Really look good. Defense, not something you usually see in summer pickup runs, but Asar brings it, man. Anything else you guys want to touch on with Asar, Gabe? You got any points?
No, it just looked clear that he was just ahead of everybody on on that end. He looked really strong, especially taking those bumps. He'd always, like Connie said, jump right back into position, be square to his man, mirror him. It was just great to see. Yeah.
And
And then,
he looks really comfortable. I mean, you can't really take a lot out of this at all, but he looks comfortable in the break at least, doing a little finishing, also lobbing it up to Duran. I think he could be a really good player if we're looking to play fast this coming season. That got me thinking about a star.
yeah, you said he looked big because he was on Norman Powell
Norman
most of the
Powell.
time. Do you know
But do
how
you
tall
know
he is?
he's 6'6", 6'7", is he not?
He's 6'3".
Oh no, I thought you meant Star Thompson. I know
Yeah,
how
yeah,
tall Norman
yeah.
Powell is. Do you not think that he can check some fours
No,
and
I
maybe,
definitely think he can. Yeah.
especially once he fills in?
Ooh.
Like maybe right now, I think
No. He does
it'd
look
be a bit of a
stronger.
stretch.
I think you can guard most fours in the
He's got.
NBA.
I think right now he can guard most fours, but once he fills in, I think he's going to be a 1 through 4 ace, which is something that's going to be so valuable. Connie, you see it a different way?
I don't know. Whenever I think of Ford, I think of Aaron Gordon for some reason. I don't
He's
think
a
he's
big four. He's
Aaron
big.
Gordon. I guess, but I don't know if that's something like you want to do. I think it kind of wastes his talents a little bit.
You want him on a ball handler more likely,
But
right?
yeah, but as far as like switching in a scheme, yeah, he could definitely switch onto a four. I don't know if that's what you want to scheme off the top.
Yeah, we'll have to
On,
see. I think a role for him might just be, hey, guard the best player on the ball. Let Cade rest. Let Ivy rest. Gabe, should we shift it over to you then for these
yeah,
defense runs?
and the next player that was like, oh, there's not too much to take away, like you said. It is kind of an amateur league, but Duran hitting that catch and shoot three, that was just nice to see after that one he hit in summer league as well. And then also he had the alley-oop to Cade, which is also talked about that on the pod doing the inverse pick and roll.
Yeah.
That's just a clip into the future there. But man, if he's shooting, like if he's even doing like what Isaiah um did in like his rookie year towards the end where he'd just take like, 1 or 2 threes every month even. Like that would just be nice to see.
So let me ask you this. Opening possession, start of the next season. At home.
No.
We'll call it the home opener. The ball comes back out to Jalen Duran. No one's within 15 feet of him. There's 10 seconds on the shot clock. You want him shooting it or no?
I mean, yeah, I do want him to shoot it just because I want to see that. Does the coach want him to shoot? No.
It's completely off topic and probably not very helpful. Tim Duncan once hit a game-winning three against the Phoenix Suns on a pick and pop
Yeah.
with Manu Ginobili, I think it was, where they get the inbound and Manu just runs downhill right away, comes off a Tim Duncan screen, and all the attention is on the guy going downhill, and he flips it back out to Timmy D, for which might have been one of his first career three-pointers. I would love to see a situation like that. I don't think we get that room with Stu to do that anymore, so I'd love to see him, just throw that outside
Part of a trick play.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Jalen Duran. I think he could hit it.
Connie, do you want to touch on Duran because my guy will kind of slightly transition into my point.
Yeah, I mean, he hit a jump shot. He also dunked about 800 times within like 3 games to 7. I don't even know how he did that. It was amazing. I really don't. Yeah, like Gabe said, like maybe one or two every month. I really hope that he is not looking to shoot jumpers a lot this coming season. I hope he just goes in for some crams and some jams and some jellies and some.
I don't know about the jelly.
No jellies.
No, no.
And jam, no jelly.
He's got pretty good touch around the rim with both hands. It's clear he does his miking drills.
But
He can also dunk it.
Does Zeke athletic ability need to do jelly layups like a different
No,
similar athletic skill set?
You're not gonna be able to dunk it every time. You're gonna have to be able to use some touch, Maybe not jams, maybe not jellies, more like dinkers and dumpers.
Yeah.
Yes,
like
I would like that a lot more.
Touch shots to get stuff over guys.
I think
it's in the bag.
I would kind of want to see his offensive game develop this year. Is kind of in a Bam Adebayo sense. Gabe, you and I, when we did a 2-man pod way back when, said that was a really good comparison as a ceiling for Jalen Duren. And Bam kind of faces up from time to time, and we've seen JD do that in very small flashes in his rookie year. So I wouldn't mind seeing him face up, pop a couple 12 to 15 footers. And he has that soft touch to get those dinkers and dumpers off, like you said. But there's no hiding the obvious here. Duren seemed like he had a pretty good teammate and a pretty good connection with Cade Cunningham, which is something we were deprived of our last season with Cade only playing those 12 games. But man, oh man, there just seems to be an instant connection there. I think that was the number one takeaway I took away from that. Just time and time again, whether it was a lob, whether it was just a pick and roll, finding JD for that dunk. It was just so prevalent. And then obviously Duren throwing a lot to Cade, like Gabe said. Just so good to see, man. But before I get to the real positives with Cade, I do want to touch on one thing. And Connor, you talked about it. We talked about it in the group chat a little bit, and that's the handle of Cade Cunningham. We saw him maybe 4 or 5 times get stripped. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. One way is, hey, this was a pretty high turnover guy. He needs to fix his handle, or maybe we should have Ivy on the ball. But I would love to give Cade Cunningham the benefit of the doubt because the guy has not played organized basketball in such a long time. And then playing against guys like Norman Powell, who have been around the block, Bones Highland, who is just so quick. The odd turnover, the odd loose handle, I'm not reading anything into it. I'm looking only at the positives. And that's the pick and roll. Are you guys concerned about the handle? There were a few loose passes in there as well. Or are you not reading into that?
I mean, it's a real thing that he doesn't have the cleanest handle, but I'm not concerned at all about it. He's a young player. If he can do everything else, and that handle will tighten up as his career goes on, as the season goes on. I mean, he just played against Team USA, and we didn't hear anything about a handle. Maybe it's just a bad day that happens. But yeah, he definitely does need to work on that handle. But no, I don't want the ball in Ivy's hands more. The pick and rolls we saw are just lethal. But then again, the connection Ivy to Duren last year, that was like the main drawing point of our team. So maybe that wouldn't be a bad thing after all.
But I will say, going back to the positives with Cade here, he is miles above anybody else in this roster in the pick and roll. Just the overall patience levels, I thought was just fantastic. There's times he comes off the screen. For you sickos with the video in front of you, I wrote it down. At 9 minutes and 20 seconds, in particular, he comes off a screen to the left, which is where he comes off almost all the time, which is what we see a lot in very good scorers. And he does like 3 or 4 hesitations, all with the ball in his left hand, waiting to see what the defense is going to do. Are they going to react? And eventually JD gets free. He finds him for a layup. Really easy. Multiple times he comes off the screen on the left, and he just keeps the defender on his hip so well. 16-20 in particular, if you got the video up. He seems to just slow motion walk. Like I kid you not, slow motion walk, somehow keeps Bone Highland on his hip the entire time and lays it up like there's nobody within 10 feet of him. So the pick and roll with Jalen Duren, and I think the pick and pop with Isaiah Stewart is going to be our bread and butter in this upcoming season. I'm so excited for this pick and roll game. I think it's the most elementary play in basketball. It's used the most. Cade Cunningham is exceptional on it. I've thrown the Chris Paul comparisons around. Chris Paul master in the pick and roll. He could execute 100 times out of 100 in his prime in that. I think Cade is going to be at that level, and he's starting to see those things. And then outside of the pick and roll, one final thing I saw, and then I want to see if you guys have anything else, because I feel like I'm talking forever here, was a couple of post-ups on the block. I think there were 2 or 3 Cade Cunningham post-ups. One resulted in a Jaden Ivey wide open 3-pointer. The other resulted in a basket for Cade Cunningham. The 3-level scoring really excites me because the jumper looks better. Beeline even said the jumper looks better. We know the mid-range is there. We know the basket, all the way to the basket is there. Throw in another element to how you can score the ball, and you're becoming a damn dangerous player. Any Cade Cunningham takeaways for you guys?
Yeah, obviously, like with his size, his positional size and strength, it was really cool to see those post-ups, and it seemed like they happened when he was the first guy down the court for the Pistons. So when he runs it down, he's got the guard matchup, and they can kind of space it out from there. which I think makes Ivy really important because if there's opportunities where K can get out and like get a seal and have Ivy take the ball up the court and get that set up, uh, that's an easy way to find layups and stuff like that. But for the handle thing, this is something we saw last year too. He is obviously great in the pick and roll positionally, kind of getting where he wants to go, but he does have a problem sometimes in a one-on-one situation getting stood up by quick guys, ball hawk type guys. He's a taller guard and he is kind of loose with it. Sometimes he gets nice crossovers, but sometimes, he got stripped a good bit last year too, and he got stripped a good bit here. I'm really not worried about anything else. The shooting, the passing looked amazing. I know there's some loose ones, but there's some crazy ones too. I would just keep an eye on the handle thing because it's important.
Anything else you guys want to talk about in terms of Rico Hines? Or should we move on to our next segment of the pod, which will be fun?
Ivy's jumper looks totally different.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't see it. Like it looked good, but like it looked the exact same mirror image to me.
Really?
Like you guys are saying that, I'm like, I'm trying to buy into it, but I don't really see it.
It was like a slow two-hand push last year. This year's left hand it doesn't
quick
stay on the
two-hand
ball at all.
The
It's
release seems
quick.
the exact same to me.
It's quicker and smoother. It's the same general. Yeah, it looks
I'll
good. I
certainly
think.
buy into it. Anything else? Should we move on?
We move
I think we
on.
can move on.
Well, our second segment here, guys, is going to be a fun one, and we want to hear from you listeners. What are your favorite moments? Because for this next segment, we've each gathered 3 or 4 of our favorite Piston moments. Yes, we started watching around 2010. These moments might be somewhat dull if you're not a Piston fan, but we have also thrown in, or at least I have thrown in an all-time moment for myself because boy, oh boy, I'm gonna get started with number 1 here if you guys don't mind. And I feel like people are just gonna laugh at me if they're not complete Piston sickos, and even then they might still. So without further ado, my in no particular order, I suppose, one of my favorite moments of all time, it's really stuck with me ever since 2013, is a Charlie Villanueva gamer versus Milwaukee.
Charlie with a shot. In time! Knocked it down!
This was a 29 win season, it was an ugly one. And when there's no play-in, you're even further and further away from that picture, more than you realize. And Charlie V was a guy that I loved from the get-go, I never knew he was good in Toronto. I never knew he had a near 50 piece as a rookie in Toronto. I didn't even know we overpaid him to come to Detroit. I just thought he was awesome. I'd never seen like a big guy like that really shoot the three. Some may say he was even ahead of his time, Charlie Villanueva. And then obviously, he did somewhat stand out on the basketball court with his alopecia, easy to recognize. But guys, I love Charlie Villanueva. You know that as well. One of my favorite players of all time. And this game winner in particular was nice. Milwaukee, the old BMO Harris Bradley Center, I believe. And he just silences the crowd on this one. It's a simple pick and pop. He pulls up, knocks it down. I remember this, it's that 8 p.m. tip off in Milwaukee. I was a middle schooler at the time, way past my bedtime, going freaking crazy watching Charlie hit this. Do you guys remember this, or is it just me?
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man, because I sent in the group chat, so there wasn't any doubled up.
No way.
This was one of
So
my
I'm so sorry, man. That's the
Oh.
first one that popped in my head. I didn't think it'd be taken.
time. What do you mean you would think it'd be taking time running
I'm
out?
sorry.
They
I'm
do a
sorry.
little pick and pop. Who gets deep in the paint there?
I have to see the video again, but I want to say it was Brandon Knight off of memory.
Well, the point guard, whoever it is, gets deep in the paint. 2 guys with him. Charlie V kick out, pump fake, fly by the defender. 1 dribble down, gets into the motion, hits the 3 as time goes out, and it's like, man, I think that's what really made Charlie Villanueva sort of a mythical figure for us when we were kids, younger. That plus like the alopecia. He's just always like a special player in my eyes. Like the guy that I'm always gonna remember, even though he was kind of a mid-role player.
Yeah, I don't remember that shot live, but I remember watching it on YouTube a bunch of times. I knew
What?
Valley would pick Charlie V. I didn't expect it to be your thing though, Gunny.
I thought I was in the clear.
There's not a crazy amount of Pistons moments in the past decade.
Well, since I took one from Connie, I'll hand it over to you now, Connie. You got another moment you can share with us?
I was just looking at. I think it's Rodney Stuckey, but it's really
Rodney
grainy
Stuckey.
footage, so I can't be sure. One of my favorite Pistons moments is sort of it was a short streak of games. I believe it was 2012. Pistons had signed Josh Smith for too much money from the Atlanta Hawks. He was pretty good on the Hawks. He came to the Pistons as our sort of number one scoring option, and I think I speak for all of us when I say like we hated that guy on the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
He was a bad shot taker. He was a brick man. I really was not a Josh Smith fan on the Pistons, and the Pistons weren't either at some point, and they waived him after this really slow start. The Pistons started the season terrible as usual. It was like another bad one. Josh Smith, a lot of chucks, but they waived him about around the new year.
5-23.
5-23, yeah, classic. And then after they waived him in the month of January, the Pistons started winning games and playing like super fun basketball. Like it was like a young Andre Drummond that wasn't like, posting up, taking hook shots yet. We had Reggie Jackson. No, we didn't. We didn't have Reggie Jackson.
We had Prime Jennings.
Brandon.
What we had was Prime Jennings, who after Josh Smith left was averaging 20 points and 7 assists, an absolute speed demon running the pick and roll with Andre. That team, that was like the first time that I had enjoyed watching Pistons basketball. It was really nice, and it sort of capped off with this game against the Raptors, which I guess is my moment, where Brandon Jennings had 34 points, 10 assists, and a couple steals, and he was absolutely cooking this game.
Brandon Jennings fires from the wing, fills it up, boot. Rebound, Jonas Jerebko to Brandon Jennings, and he guns it down from downtown.
Wow. He was hitting crazy three-pointers. He was just beating guys, and the game ended in overtime against the Raptors. I always love beating the Raptors. Him stripping Kyle Lowry for the win to end the game and taking it down the other way. And unfortunately, shortly after, ruptured the Achilles. Was really never the same level of guy, but for that short bit, I really had some belief in the bright future Pistons.
That injury to Brandon Jennings took me so long to get over, because that was the first bit of fantastic point guard play I've seen in such a long time. And it was almost a mix of like street ball in a way. We saw that signature Rajon Rondo behind the back fake pass so much. He also did it kind of where he showed out in front of him. Jennings was one of my favorite players to watch. Gabe, I'm curious, do you have a Brandon Jennings moment on here?
No, I don't.
Because then I would like to say, just like quickly building off, and then we can shift it off to you, Gabe. Within that run, Brandon Jennings hit a game winner against San Antonio as well. And this is completely off of memory as I started tuning into NBA TV once we actually started winning games, because I liked seeing our name up in the big leagues, which is what we didn't see very much. And I remember them tuning into the Pistons and saying, yo, look at this Brandon Jennings guy. He makes basketball so fun. Look at these cool highlights. And I was instantly hooked on Brandon Jennings and what he brought to the Pistons. But he had a moment where he had a bank shot game winner against the San Antonio Spurs, which left Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich in so much shock in their post-game interview, I recall. That just I had to note that that fantastic game winner happened. But Gabe, should we shift it off to you then for your favorite Piston moment? Or
Yeah, sure. Well, again, in no particular order, I'll
Yeah.
take you back to 2019.
Oh, boy.
Another point guard game winner is Derrick Rose's game winner against the Pelicans.
Derek with the drive. Over Holiday. Hits it as time runs out. Derrick Rose wins the ball game for the Pistons over the Pelicans here in New Orleans.
I remember it was like a long ISO. He was just kind of dribbling at the top of the key, and then he takes Drew Holiday of all people to the paint really hard, spins off him. Drew Holiday just like falls down, and then Rose just hits a perfect turnaround mid-range jumper. He had 17 points that day in the fourth quarter alone, and then I just remember afterwards he was just stone-faced. He didn't express anything at all, and then he had the legendary post-game quote, "I'm born to do this shit," and I remember that was like a NBA meme for a while. So yeah, I just like that picture still occasionally comes around on Reddit on the internet. So it's just a legendary game for me right there.
He does that. Or at least he did that regularly. That stone face. He had a lot of big shots for us when he was on our team, and every time he would walk to the huddle, but not be in it. Just stand there completely stone faced. I heard the Pelicans broadcast for this a billion times.
Yeah.
The main commentator, like before he sees the play happen, before it happens, Derrick Rose gets open. He goes, "Oh God, they created so much room for Derrick Rose." Before the shot's even up, he goes, "And he got the shot off," as in a tone as it already went in.
Derrick Rose against Drew Holiday, and he's got a little mid-range. That's it. It's over. Detroit Pistons win it and got what they wanted at the end of the game.
That just made it so much cooler. I really wish we capitalized more on Derrick Rose's time here because he was fantastic for us. Obviously, such an icon of the game. Coni, anything you want to note on here? Or can we move on?
I don't have much to say on D Rose.
Quick side note: the Pelicans commentator, he is one of my least favorite in the league.
Dude, they're great. They're great.
He annoys me.
Really?
But think about this, and then he has to explain what happened in the play.
Well, I'm gonna move on to our next point. Before I go completely outrageous, I think I'll tone it down a little. And that's Cade Cunningham versus Brooklyn. His career high. What did his career high? He went 34, 5, and 6 in this game in a close Pistons loss. And if you remember, he didn't even play an entire quarter in this game. So we easily could have seen his scoring output go even higher. But this game right here against the Brooklyn Nets last season, where Cade had 34 points, showed to me this guy is so freaking for real. I already knew it before then, but I think there was just a complete takeover in him that game that really showed he is that guy. And KD's words after the game only further assured that, saying having nothing but high praise for him. But the way Cade took over in this game reminded me of the way KD can take over a game. Your Bookers, your Luka, even your LeBrons in a way, because he did it from so many different ways. He just looked like the complete package, like a superstar, like the guy I think he's going to be, which is why it's such a fantastic moment for me. Just excited about the future for him and this team. You guys want to hop right on, or do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, Kevin Durant went nuts that game, right?
I believe he did Kevin Durant things. Yeah.
Did he have 51? Was that game?
Very good chance.
Oh no, different game. That was a rookie year. Different good game by KD. He had 26 his rookie year against the Nets, and they needed 51 from KD to overcome the Pistons. It's cool that he shows up against that guy.
The one play I remember from that game is Cade drives into KD, hits him with a little chicken wing, and then lays it up, and then KD complains to the ref afterwards with the elbow gesture.
Coni, your second moment?
We got the Blake Griffin 50 piece. 51 against the Sixers.
Bounce top side to Blake Griffin. Turns, drives, lays it up, lays it in, and he is fouled. And he is fouled. 49 for Blake.
was early in his All NBA third team run season. Great season for Blake Griffin, in my opinion, one of his best from like a skill standpoint. And that 50 piece was really just it was a clinic. He was absolutely unstoppable in the mid range. Like those, he was just working whatever guy they tried to put on him. He was making him look silly. He was taking to the basket. He was hitting tough shots. Big dunk over Joel Embiid, and then of course the game-winning like fake handoff and one drive to the hoop. That was like Blake. He doesn't have that same physicality the same type of physicality that he had in his younger days, but he's still strong as an ox, can move on the floor, and that was the last good Blake season, and that was a great game. I had some hope in that game. I think he had a really negative post press conference afterwards, though, because we were like eking out games against teams that we shouldn't have been eking them out against.
Were we not 4-1 to start that season?
Yeah, but they were all like really close games, and he was not happy about it.
Man, that was a magical Blake season. I'm still so like impartial on Blake because of the way he left on such sour terms, which I think was so avoidable. But the guy was so good for us. I think that was without a doubt his best skill NBA season. And statistically it was his best season. Led us to a pretty decent record. Gabe, do you have any moment or something that stood out from this game?
I remember really vividly. Me and Hattie had just played basketball at the IM, and we're in his Jeep about to drive home, and I pulled it up on my phone, and like just in time for the fourth quarter to end. So we just watched that in OT and had his Jeep. Always remember that. And one that was actually an offensive foul, but they didn't call it that way. That's an all time. That's probably my like overall number one memory of the Pistons.
That was definitely the place I went to. I did see that Coni took that one at least. So I had to stay away from it. But without a doubt, if you're looking back at the past decade or so, easily the number one player, right? Is it back to me or over to you, Gabe?
Over to me, and this might actually be the number one play here. I'll take you back to November in 2015. And this was a game against the Blazers. I think it was the sixth game of the season. And this was a huge comeback win in the fourth. I just remember this because we were watching the Pistons like usual. I think I was a junior in high school at the time. Maybe a senior, yes. So we went upstairs because it was a blowout. We were losing in the third. I think we're down by 15, and then we hear Lily start screaming, so we come back down and we tied it up. And I just remember Jackson going absolutely crazy. He didn't like touch the rim at all in the fourth quarter. He didn't pull up mid ranges, pull up threes, that pick and roll with Drummond. He had 26 in the fourth quarter, a 40-piece total, and then Drummond, with nothing to sneeze at, puts up 29 points and 27 rebounds. His third 2020 game in 6 games that season. That was just prime pick and roll. Reggie and Drummond. That was also like a fun team. If Reggie didn't get hurt, that could have been a solid team for, I feel like, at least like 3 years. And that was just, this game was like the epitome of that.
And that was our playoff year, right? 2015-16?
I think so.
KCP that game hit some huge shots as well, if I'm not mistaken, especially down the stretch. I believe he hit some big ones. It's not fresh.
I think we also had Marcus Morris, who was like playing really well at the time. Maybe that was a little bit later. Maybe that was the other game I'm thinking of. I don't know.
Well, then I'm going to move on to my next point, and buckle up, fellas. This is where it gets rowdy, you know. This is where it gets real sicko season, because I'm staying in the same year, but on the final day of the regular season, where the Pistons have already locked in at the 8th seed, and I see a smile on Connie's face, and we rest everybody against the Cavs. Everybody. Boy, I wish I had the starting lineup in front of me, actually, but I can't.
One guy that matters.
I can tell you one person in that starting lineup, and that's two-time NBA champion Joel Anthony. What are you guys talking about Joel Anthony on a Detroit Pistons podcast? What are you doing talking about Joel Anthony on a podcast, you know?
Period.
But holy cow, was this a game to remember? Because Joel Anthony racked up 8 blocks this game, a number that has only been topped by Ben Wallace once, who had 10, and then someone else had 10. The name is slipping from me. He is third all time in single game Piston blocks with 8. Joel Anthony. From the get-go, this guy was just taking over. He barely eclipsed double-digit points, almost had a nasty, nasty double-double. But the good vibes in this game have not been replicated since. Having made the playoffs, the starters are resting on the bench. From the get-go, you can tell they're just having a good time, ready for the big battle ahead of them. But of all people to go bananas, it was Joel. And he had a couple of big ones in overtime as well. And this was a guy that, for no reason, was a personal favorite of mine. He did not see the court. He was not a good NBA player. He was one of the worst offensive guys I've ever seen. But dang, could he block shots? That was shown here in this one. You guys remember this one?
I do.
Vaguely.
Joel
He's
Anthony
got some film to watch.
he was in the NBA from 2007 to 2017, and his highest points per game average is 2.6.
That's a long career.
Oh, sorry, 3.5. 3.5. That Pistons season though, he played 8 minutes a game and he averaged a block a game. So
Yeah, I remember that.
To do one thing, and that was to block a shot.
The guy
Vali, do you want to hear the Pistons lineup for that game?
Wait. The starting 5? We're trying to guess.
Sure.
Okay, so Joel's at the 5.
No.
Was Anthony Tolliver in the starting 5?
Yeah, Tolliver at the 4. Put up 15 points that game.
It wasn't Gigi, was it?
No.
It wouldn't be Henry Allenson, would it?
Nope.
What about the guards? Steve Blake?
Yep, Steve Blake starting point guard.
Spencer? Did
Nope. He's a lefty.
He was on the other team cooking us.
He's a lefty. He was a younger guard at the time.
You loved him. Darun Hilliard?
Yeah, Darun Hilliard. Starting at the 2. And,
okay, so we need the 3 and the 5?
Yeah, the 3 and the 5.
So if it wasn't Joel, who was the backup? Was it Aaron Baines?
Aaron Baines.
Okay. And the
0 for 0 from 3 that game. Didn't take one.
The 3, it couldn't have been Stanley, could it have?
It was Stanley. And Coni Dinwiddie came off the bench that game as well.
Yeah.
Along with Jody Meeks and Reggie Bullock.
Listing off random NBA role players from the mid-2010s is one of my favorite things to do. So if you have an opportunity to do something like that, I'd love to do it.
How about this guy? Do you know who Sasha Cowan is?
Sasha Cowan, the big man.
Yeah, how do you actually know who that is? Yeah, he was on the Cavs bench that game. He played 23 minutes.
In those 2K redrafts, when you make those like that serpentine draft,
he's at the bottom.
Here's one, Valley. You know who Quincy Miller is?
Dude, I feel like he was a wing and he was a shooter.
I couldn't tell you. He was a power forward. He had played 3 years. He was on that team.
Oh no, I'm not particularly sure. I know Quincy Pondexter, but man, I could go down the rabbit hole with these.
I was like, hey, do you know this guy?
One of my favorite things to do. Well then, how many more moments do you guys have? I have one of more favorite moment of the last decade or so.
I got one more as well.
We could do one more.
Okay, Connie, can we throw you on it right now, or should we get back to you?
Yeah, sure. It's with the game of Cade Cunningham got ejected for punching it on Jalen Smith, man.
Much movement and very little standing around. Oh!
But Cade with an answer.
I refuse to believe he was pointing at the bench. In my mind, so for the play, he goes baseline, basically wraps it around, hammers it on top of Jalen Smith of the Indiana Pacers, points in his general direction. He says he was pointing to the bench, and the refs kick him out for it. I hope that he was pointing at Smith, because I love that. The hammer down point. It was a sick play. It was an athletic play, which is something we don't see a lot from Caden in the NBA, at least. And I don't know. It's something I really remember as like that. I felt Cade was really coming on during that time, and then shortly later he, done for the season.
That I remember the call by the special guy. He's like, "What did he do? What did he do?"
And then Baja goes, "What? Maybe point at somebody?"
Unbelievable. Are you kidding me?
What did he do? He pointed at somebody?
It's a shame we got blown out that game.
I think that was the first like Pistons Bleacher Report kind of Twitter video of the year. One of the only ones.
Gabe, do you have your final moment ready?
Yeah, it is also Cade Cunningham. It's when we got, well, more precisely, when the Rockets showed us in the lottery, was it 2021, when it showed Rockets get the number 2 pick. I started going crazy because that meant we won the draft lottery for the first time in however long.
The second pick will be made by the Houston Rockets, and that means that the number 1 pick in the 2021 NBA draft goes to the Detroit Pistons.
And I was going crazy in the apartment. I was jumping around. I just remember I was so happy that like things actually worked out for the Pistons after like the entire season. All of like Reddit and Twitter was like, "We're gonna get the number 1 pick. We're gonna get the number 1 pick," and it like felt that way the whole time, and then it actually happens. Great moment. And then to add on to that, when he pulls out the buffs on the interview and he says like, "Detroit, let's get it," got me extremely hyped after the draft.
Love it. And shout out, hold on. Shout out Detroit. I got to buff up, you know what I'm saying? Shout out Detroit.
Oh, you're ready.
Buffed up now. Which camera I'm looking at? I'm in this one.
Yeah, you're in this one right here.
Detroit, I'm all the way in. Detroit Pistons, I'm all the way in. Let's do it.
I think that's got to be the pod's mutually agreed favorite moment when Cade put the buffs on.
Kind of made it happen. I remember that night so clearly. I started that day, and I think the days before I was talking to Mike, my roommate at the time, and I was saying I'm really not interested in the draft lottery. I'll just look at it on my phone. I'll check it out on Twitter or something. And I think I don't know if everyone was there, but I was playing basketball, full court basketball, like an hour before, and in a full sprint, stepped on the back of some guy's foot and just exploded my ankle. It took me out for like over a month. But I was just sitting on the couch in a bad mood, watching like my ankle's like twice in size, watching the Pistons, watching the draft lottery, and then Rockets number 2, Pistons are the first pick, and we all I forget about it for that moment. I jump off the couch. It's me, Mike, some other guy just like screaming in our apartment. We had a really bad upstairs neighbor at the time, and she actually like started slamming on the floor and sent us a text like, "We're gonna have a problem." That was really annoying. And I think we may have even like taken that good energy, and I think we went to Rick's. I walked to Rick's. I was just like this broken ankle and some like painkillers because Mike was like, "Dude, we have to go to Pistons won the lottery," and I couldn't argue with him. So yeah, that was a great night. I love that.
For those of you who aren't from the Ann Arbor area, Rick's is a local bar that Connie rated after the good news. It's funny we can all say we exactly knew where we were. I know damn well where I was. Mine wasn't that crazy. I was at home with mom watching the old lottery, and then she goes, "Who do we get now?" And we don't have Cade Cunningham yet. It's gonna be a month or two. But yeah, great moment. Like we said, if we can all know exactly where we were, then we can confirm that as the Buffs on Pod's best moment of the last decade. I've got a bit of a different angle for my final point here, and it's in the middle of 2022. Kind of an ugly season, right? Um, but you got to understand is I love Killian Hayes, guys, and this was the start of something just unreal for Killian. This was the start of where I thought, holy cow, we found out how to score. He's going to be a good NBA player now, not just like a suitable passing one, a good one. And this game, particularly against Dallas, was crazy. He had a decent start. You know, he was starting to get the start with Kate Cunningham being out. I think Ivy missed a good amount of time during this stretch, but did play in this one. But Killian Hayes hits back-to-back overtime threes off some sidesteps to put the Dallas Mavericks away after having a complete takeover in the final 4 minutes of regulation. Mid-range after mid-range. He hit 3 middies in a row. Defense adjusts. He pump fakes the midi, gets a beautiful bounce pass.
Yeah.
It was a fun stretch while it lasted.
The stretch was unreal, man. But man, that's our last decade or so favorite moments. We hope this next decade provides some more beautiful points. Kind, do you have another one? Because we all have our all-time moments as well.
Yeah, just I thought I like the after the Cade draft lottery. I started watching the draft lottery. Me and Michael had a pretty good time when the Kings picked Keegan Murray. We got very excited about that one when they passed up on Ivy, and it was like, oh, the Kings passed on him. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one too.
Real quick, what
yeah.
about I don't know if you're gonna get to this or not, Valley, but an all-time moment.
Oh, I have this. I mean, all time for the Pistons, it's got to be Isaiah Thomas dropping 25 points in a quarter after the snapped ankle. I think one of the most, especially for a smaller guy that depended on speed, I think one of the most impressive feats in NBA history. Really, like in a lower scoring league, yeah, against a really tough opponent in the Lakers. I think it was the Lakers.
Yeah.
Just incredible, and that's why he's better than Chris Paul.
Do you have the same point?
No, I was gonna say the Big Ben block on Shaq.
O'Neal deep in the post, lots of contact there. Oh, what a block by Wallace! Wow. And a jump ball. Wow.
I don't know how many times I've watched that YouTube video.
Ooh,
what?
What about the Tayshaun block on Reggie Miller?
Tinsley, Reggie Miller, and it's blocked again. Oh, what a block! How did Prince get there?
Yeah, I just love two big men clashing. The Tayshaun block's probably like crazier. Well, it is crazier, but that block, I just remember that kind of Shaq, that whole series was being played single coverage with Ben Wallace, and man, those highlights, that's some bodies right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wrote down the Tayshaun block. I think that's arguably the greatest block in the history of the NBA. It's certainly in that conversation. But like you said, Gabe, there's something special about the big on big battle, especially when one of the bigs is 6'7" undrafted, and the other one is a 7'1" established superstar. We've certainly seen some great moments from the Pistons in the past, a few good ones in the last decade or so. But I think I speak for all of us when I say this next decade is what we're most excited for. So much freaking potential. We say it time and time again, but we really mean it. We think they give you loads of highlights, and with guys like Ivy and Duran, there's going to be some all-time plays. 10 years from now, we're going to see some outrageous highlights from these guys. But is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap up yet another pod?
I just have.
No,
go ahead. Oh, okay. I was just gonna say there's two names that I think should be mentioned when it comes to Pistons memories. One for me is Greg Monroe, my all-time favorite Piston. He was a beast, and I just couldn't think of a moment. He was more just an always there, 15 and 10.
Best post player in the
post.
NBA.
Yeah, at one point. And then the other name, Valley, you're probably the biggest fan of this man who's not his wife or kid, and that is Anthony Tolliver. I can't believe you didn't bring up his name.
It's the thing. Like you said, I was trying to find particular moment, and I think there
Did-
were some, but I
Didn't
kind
he
of
join the team right when we hit that, like, right when we let Josh Smith go?
I
we
just
traded for him from Phoenix, and I recall me and you talking. I think we gave him Tony Mitchell, high flying Tony Mitchell, and we were like, "Hey, for free, why not?" But it was the start of 3 spells, correct, in Detroit for Anthony Tolliver, or was it 2?
two that mattered. I think
It was at least 2 that mattered.
there was a
Absolutely.
dip between those. It was like he was on the team. Team was all right. He left. We had a bad.
Yeah, I came back.
And he came back.
I know he was there with Blake, and he ended up playing pretty good next to him. I was a huge fan of Anthony Tolliver. Gabe, you hit it right on the nose. Shout out to Anthony Tolliver. I want to say a special shout out to Ish Smith as well. When I was looking back at some of our best plays of the decade, his highlights were definitely on there. Such a crafty player. Coni, anyone else you want to give just like an honorable mention shout out to for making this last 10 years of Pistons basketball enjoyable to you?
Will the Thrill Bynum?
Woo! Great shout.
Healthy Reggie Jackson. Pre-injury Reggie Jackson was a really, really good player. Hey, do you remember Josh Harrelson?
Do I remember him? Yeah.
Yeah, big shooting big man.
Yeah, that's right, dude. Oh, didn't he play for the Bobcats or something?
Probably. I think
You might be
he
confusing him with Mr. Half Triple Double, Josh McRoberts.
McDonald. I was indeed confusing him. He averaged 2.9 points per game for us.
Give off that
All right.
bench.
Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get out of here?
Don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, Buffs on fans. And again, we want to hear from you guys. What are some of your favorite Piston moments, not just this last decade or so, but of all time in the history of the Pistons, because there have been so many. But without further ado, throw the Buffs on Detroit because the future is bright.